Okay, I call to order the meeting of Mayor and Council. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you'll rise for the opening prayer by Councilman King.
We can bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, Lord Jesus, Lord, we just thank you for this day, Lord. Just thank you for all the blessings that you have given to each and every one of us, Lord. Just thank you for the opportunity for us to be here tonight, Lord, the opportunity for us to serve our community. Lord, just be with us tonight, guide our conversations and discussions, Lord, and just give us the wisdom and knowledge to deal with issues at hand, Lord. And just, Lord, just continue to keep our city lifted up, Lord, and our country, Lord. And at the end of the day, it's about you. We just give you the praise and glory and honor. And we stop in this holiday season, Lord, Christmas, and we celebrate your birth. We ask all these blessings in your wonderful and glorious name. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Okay, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, you've all received the minutes from our last meeting. If there are no questions or comments, I'll accept a motion to receive the minutes.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make that motion.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Councilman King, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, first thing we have under correspondence tonight, it didn't make the agenda tonight, but I did want to make the council aware as well as the public, is that as you're aware, we did go to Sussex County and do our presentation and a request to ask them to partner with the city of Seaford on the Western Sussex Business Campus is what we're calling it. That's the property north of the Ross Mansion, a little over 100 acres that's along Herring Run Road and Ross Station Road. And today they passed an agreement, a resolution is what they're calling it, to help support Seaford in this project to the tune of about $1.9 million, just under that, to help us with infrastructure to bring this in. They're very much aware that we are in conversations and have a letter of intent from a developer, and they're excited about this. So for the public, this is what the potential of this project is going to look like. The resolution is really funding we broke this up into really three phases, phase 1A and phase 1B, which is from the dark green line north, and then phase 2 is the remainder, which runs up close to the Ross Mansion and FedEx. So this sort of just gives us a layout. What this funding is going to go toward is phase 1A, which is really those first 4 buildings on the top of the paper. The hope is once we get this thing going and get infrastructure in, then within 18 months, the developer is committed to build a $4 to $5 million building and bring in jobs to Seaford. So I wanted to make you aware that the Sussex County Council did decide to partner with the city of Seaford. We're super excited about the opportunity this is going to bring to all of Seaford and really Western Sussex for the potential of jobs. So are there any questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
I just want to really appreciate and thank you just for your due diligence and just passion and energy around bringing jobs and industry to Seaford. So I appreciate your leadership and your drive to do that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilman King. I appreciate that. Really, what this is a culmination of going all the way back to Mayor Guy Longo and many city councils and leadership that have seen this property as an opportunity. But really, it took what you guys did in the leadership to say, hey, let's get after this and start laying infrastructure. And certainly Charles and Tricia have worked extremely hard, along with Burley and Bill, to lay out the infrastructure costs. So, okay, any other questions? Councilman Henderson?
I was unable to attend today's council meeting. Could you give us a flavor of the support? Was the support unanimous? Obviously, it was a majority, but I'd like to get the tone of what the council felt about the project.
It was a 4-to-1 vote. Councilman Wilson voted against. I can't tell you why he voted against. The rest of the county council was very much aware that this was part of their comprehensive plan to see growth in jobs in Western Sussex. The county administrator did a great job to explain that the city of Seaford had already purchased this property, had already got the zoning done for this property, and really has infrastructure really close to this property. And for the county to go out and purchase and really start from scratch would be a lot more money than what they've got invested. But also, they made the statement that they don't want to compete with municipalities. And this is truly a great partnership. Western Sussex wins, and it's the best opportunity. And I think with the letter of intent that they're aware of, that we're working towards, I think that really just cinched the deal, knowing that we're looking at high-quality buildings being built there and a great park that's going to be developed.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, with that, we're going to new business number 1, and I'm going to call up Mr. Jackson Whitaker, who tonight is going to present to you his Eagle Scout service project, which is really pop-up libraries. And Mr. Jackson and I have been speaking over the last several months, and he's been building up to this point, getting his approvals and working through some things. But I thought it would be good for him to come present his idea to you all for approval, but also to sort of promote his project. So, Jackson, we appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Jackson Whitaker,
Good evening. Good evening.
and tonight I will be presenting my Eagle Project idea for book boxes. Who am I? My name is Jackson Whitaker. I'm 17 years old, and I'm in my junior year of high school. I've been in scouting since I was 8 years old, and I'm on my last step to becoming an Eagle Scout. I have a big passion for scouts, and I thoroughly enjoy camping and the great outdoors. You may be wondering, what is the Eagle Scout Service Project? Well, the Eagle Scout Service Project, or simply put, the Eagle Project is an opportunity for a Boy Scout to demonstrate leadership over others while performing a project for the benefit of his or her community. So, how will this project benefit my community, which is Seaford? There are 4 benefits to having little free libraries in your own city or town. Number 1, it supports literacy. Book boxes improve access and thus help tackle low literacy rates. By providing books all year round, they can mitigate the summer slide where kids' reading skills may slip. And 24-hour availability makes it possible for kids and working parents to share books at times convenient for them. Number 2, it demonstrates a reading lifestyle. A book-sharing box filled with books for all ages on a variety of subjects will attract patrons from all different parts of the community. Participation by such a range of users, from little kids to seniors, shows budding readers the value of our culture, places on books, and encourages good reading habits. Number 3, forging partnerships with parents. When schools, libraries, and parents work together, the outcomes can be powerful. Parents can be important advocates, and they can play a critical role with the maintenance of a little free library or a book sharing network, whether it be for a school, library, or an entire system. Number 4, it establishes new avenues of community service, whether it be maintenance for the book box, or it gives an opportunity for everyone to share the books and different books that they like. You may be wondering, what is a book box? A book box, or a little free library, is a free book exchange. They may come in many different shapes and sizes, but the most common form is a small wooden box filled with books. Anyone may bring a book or take a book to share. Brent Mascott, a principal at an elementary school, says that there is so much to learn through reading, and anything that we can add to our school to add to that love of reading, such as little free libraries, is a great addition, and our whole community will be able to use it. Lori Berezovsky, a community engagement coordinator at a public library, says that we consider our little libraries to be part of our community engagement and our outreach efforts. Now, the plan for building the book boxes is as follows. I need to get the plan approved by the council. I need to solicit for books and supplies. I need to build the 6 book boxes at my home using the Boy Scouts of America to help me build those. And then we're going to be painting the book boxes and sealing them with a waterproof sealant. We're going to be adding posts to the book boxes and placed in different locations, cementing them in the ground at those locations. Once all the book boxes are obtained, then organize the books into sections and fill the boxes with the books. Refill these little libraries until the director of Seaford Library takes possession of these pop-up libraries. Then when he gives me the okay saying that he wants to take the project over, I will then turn the project over to him and then donate the remaining books that I have to them. For execution of this project, I will need approximately $1,500 for the materials and other items that will be used for this project. Tools will be provided by the scouts who will be under my leadership and also be building these boxes and placing them. I plan on executing this project between the months of January and April. Some of the locations that I have thus far is High Street near City Hall, the Kiwanis Park, the Jay's Nest near the library, and the Boys and Girls Club in Seaford. But we still need 2 more locations, so if there's any spot that is available that the public wants to donate to this, then you can please contact me at jackswit95@gmail.com. Thank you for your time. If you wish to donate books, please bring them to the City Hall, where I will put a box for collections for any monetary donations, or if you have any questions, please email me at jackswit95@gmail.com.
I'm afraid you're probably going to get contacted by somebody on Willie Street who wants one on the corner of their lot. So Mrs. Genshaw may be emailing you right now. So Jackson, thanks so much for presenting this opportunity. We're always so proud when a young person, first off, comes into a building that's full of older people. I'm sorry, Councilman Santos, but really it says a lot to your character to come and be able to speak in a place like this and to stand up there at the mic and present your idea. Really, really proud of you. But I did want to give the opportunity to City Council to ask you any questions or comments they may have.
I have one.
Councilman King?
First of all, Councilman King, congratulations, an Eagle Scout, a fellow Scout, didn't make it that high. I mean, that's an incredible journey for you to get to that position or that rank, so congratulations on that. So can we talk a little bit about, as far as COVID? So is there any COVID concerns on the drop box, on touching, handling, dropping off? Is there any thought or consideration going into that type of, sorry?
Well, with building the boxes, we will have obviously the COVID safety and guidelines, but with COVID guidelines with book boxes, actually when I'm finished building them, and then we'll put them out to the public to where they can pass off books. I have not thought that far into that.
Okay. And a lot of that responsibility will fall back on the people that are exchanging, picking up and exchanging. I didn't know if there was an area that was kind of in the blueprint saying, hey, maybe hand sanitizers, maybe some attachment or something.
All right.
Yeah, thanks, I appreciate it.
Any other?
note of that.
Councilman McCoy?
Thank you.
Councilman McCoy, I'm just curious, where you came up with the idea? Have they done this other locations that you're aware of?
They have a book box in Georgetown.
Okay.
I cannot tell you the exact street,
Yeah, no.
but they do have one there. But I did think of this project because I'm currently reading Shakespeare,
All right.
and I enjoy reading in my family. We're since we're all homeschooled, we enjoy reading and we love diving into different books. So I feel like I would just like to expand on that and just let everyone else be able to read as well.
Amen.
Well, as a former English major, good luck on the Shakespeare.
Okay, Councilman Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Congratulations on your project. I've been in construction for a long time, almost my entire adult life, and there are often delays, and everyone hopes that you make it by April, but I hope you've built in enough margin before your 18th birthday that you will have this done, because I would hate to see a delay risk your ability to finish your project and you not make it. So I just hope you've considered that. I don't know when you turn 18, but hopefully it's later in the year.
Yes.
And you're not right up against the deadline, because I know how, especially in these times, how delays can happen. We've got several projects that started out very ambitiously around town and have been delayed through no fault of the developer or the person constructing the job. But I just, as a young man, that's just a little bit of advice that I just hope you've built in enough margin of time so that you can complete your project.
I have until October to finish it.
Excellent. Thank you.
There you go. Well played. Okay, Councilman Santos?
It's Councilman Santos here. This is an awesome news. I think this is great. I think I'm going to donate a few of my favorite books to this as well. Can you tell me a little bit about this library? How big is it? And is there a way to, do you have any pictures besides, would you present it up there?
So I have a drawn out copy of what it's going to look like. Unfortunately, it is over there.
Okay.
But it's going to be it's going to be 2 feet in height, and it's going to be 3 feet in width. Is
Okay.
the size of the actual box.
Okay.
But
It's in the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If you open up the document, it's on the last page.
Okay, sorry about that. And you said that you were going to seal it for weather purposes. There will be no way that gust of wind will blow anything out or water would go in if someone leaves the door open or anything like that? Or?
I'm going to allow enough roofing to go over top of the door so that no water will be able to drip into it, and so that I will secure the sides so that no water will be able to leak on it either, and we're going to be cementing it at least 2.5 feet in the ground.
Awesome. All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, if not, I'll accept the motion.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make that motion to approve the proposed Eagle Scout project that will replace library boxes in several city park locations and at City Hall as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman McCoy, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Absolutely. Jackson, we wish you the best of luck, and please let us know if we can help in any way. We want to support you anyhow we can, okay? So,
Good job, Jack.
congratulations.
Good job on your presentation, too. You
Thank
did a
you.
really good job.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
sir, yeah.
Thank you for coming. All right, next we have our annual audited statements, which is the big package that Director Merritt handed out.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. I have our auditors, SB and Company, on the phone, and Toby Hollander, the audit manager, and William Seymour, the audit partner. They will be presenting the audited financial statement, and they have a presentation, and so just kind of bear with us as we try to do this virtually. Let's see if this will work. Okay, so I have the presentation up. Toby, I believe you're going first. Okay, oh, there we go, sorry. All right.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Toby Hollander. I'm the audit manager on engagement. Jen, can you flip to the next slide, please?
Okay, Toby, hold on just one moment. Yours.
Sure.
Yeah, you need, I think your speaker, if you have your computer up, I think your speaker, maybe you need to turn that off, because we're getting sound behind you.
Is this better?
Yes, that's good.
Okay, yeah, so that must have been interfering. Okay. So I'll just repeat what I had said. My name is Toby Hollander, and I'm the audit manager on the engagement. If you flip to the next slide, please. So on the call, I have Bill Seymour, the audit partner, as well. Next slide. So today we'll be presenting the results of the audit that we completed. Our scope of services includes performing the audit of the June 30, 2020 financial statements for the City of Seaford, as well as providing assistance in the preparation of the financial statements and the footnotes. And we are planning to issue an unmodified or clean opinion on the financial statements. That's the best opinion that we could be issuing. We had no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses noted in internal controls, and we'll go through the process that we tested in a little bit more detail in the next few slides. But had we been aware of anything, we would have brought it to your attention. We did not discover, nor were we made aware of any instances of fraud, and we received full cooperation from management throughout the audit with assisting us with all of our questions and requests. Next slide. So one item that was new this year in our audit process was assessing the potential risk impact of COVID-19. So this happened obviously during the fiscal year as well as throughout our audit process. So some of the risks that we were looking at was the possible impairment of assets. So were there any assets that were impaired or lost value during the year because of COVID or just as an impact? Any additional costs or liabilities that had to be incurred, including setting up the town hall to make the city hall to make it possible for people to come in and be social distance or buying materials or supplies, as well as looking at the collectibility of receivables and just understanding is there any risk that receivables could become uncollectible? Would any allowance have to be increased or considered because of that? As well as the risk of when employees are working remotely, does that have any potential changes in internal control processes? Or, for example, were any controls decreased that would now create a larger risk in internal controls? In addition, we consider the increased risk of fraud, both internal and external. And from an internal perspective, specifically looking at internal controls and understanding that processes may change during the year, that does increase the risk of internal fraud, as well as external fraud, just to see environment. Unfortunately, we're seeing increases across the industry of people attempting different types of fraud schemes because they know people are working remotely and times have changed. As well as the potential need for additional disclosures in the financial statement, understanding if there's any risk contingencies or anything we would need to include in the management discussion and analysis, just to make the public aware of how the COVID-19 could impact the statement. One thing that was new this year is we perform the audit procedures remotely. In the past, we would come on site and perform walkthroughs and do certain testings in person. The testing itself did not change. We were able to perform the full scope of testing, but we had to do that work remotely. So instead of doing meetings in person, we were able to use video conferences such as this one to meet with the individuals and screen sharing so that we could perform that walkthrough in a quality way, as well as requesting support to be provided electronically through the use of a secure portal. And we were able to share information, which is similar to how we've done it in the past as well. And as part of our audit process, we really evaluated the impact of these items above to see if there was any additional risk or any risk exposure in the financial statements. And there was no additional items that we bring to your attention that we were made aware of or identified as part of our audit. We'll go to the next slide. And sorry, one more slide as well. So on this slide, we have a picture or graph of our audit approach. So SBC uses a risk-based audit approach, and we we have the acronym FORCAM, which stands for Focus on Risk, Controls, and Account Misstatement. And the picture that you're seeing looks a little bit like a funnel. And what you can see is at the top of the funnel is the first step of our audit process, and that's where we spend the most amount of time because we're focusing and understanding that risk. So that process is our planning and understanding the business and risk process. We spend a lot of time through our client acceptance process, understanding the environment, assessing materiality, and doing our planning to make sure that we identify all the risks that could be of issue or areas that we would like to focus on during our audit. And then we plan our audit accordingly. Then the next step is assessing and testing the design and operations of controls. So we meet with management and understand what the processes that are in place currently are and making sure that these processes are reasonable and don't have potential risks in the design of controls, as well as making selections for testing. So we select actual transactions that occurred during the fiscal year and tie that back to source documents to make sure that they are adequately supported, as well as following the design processes. We also look at the financial close and reporting the statement analysis. So when we look at the final numbers, we perform analytics to make sure that the balances are reasonable. We analyze those balances looking at changes during years, different expectations, and making sure that those numbers met our expectations or if there are any potential risk areas. Our next step is to perform the substandard testing. So we look at those year-end balances and we do tests on the balances themselves to make sure that they are complete, that they are not materially misstated. All right, if you go back, that's the last area that we were looking at with the, no, that's okay. Okay. The gas compliance and reporting is our last step, where we perform the required steps as part of our audit process, as well as wrapping up the report and preparing the presentation to the City Council, as well as getting representations from management. If you go to the next slide, please. So the next few slides that we'll be looking at are showing the results of our assessment of the control environment. And this is based on the COSO framework, and there are really 5 areas that we look at when we assess the controls. So they're starting with the control environment, and this is often described as the tone at the top. So we're looking at the key executive integrity, ethics, and behavior, their commitment to competence, what kind of oversight is there for the city. And what you'll see for these 3 is we've assessed these as green, so we had no issues or risks to bring to your attention. We also look at the risk assessment process, so the process for management looks at possible risks and how it could impact the organization. For example, this year COVID-19 is a big one, and understanding what procedures we need to change or how to react to the significant event in a way that's best for the city. We also look at the control activities, so we look at, as part of our testing, we look at the design of the control activities as well as doing testing to make sure that those activities are properly designed and that there's adequate safeguards, documents, and records and assets, and that these controls are in place and functioning. All the 3 on this page are green, and if you go to the next slide. So the next 2 items we have here are the information and communication and monitoring. For information and communication, we're looking at, is the organization, the city, using quality information? Is there communication internally to make sure that the information that's being presented is correct and accurate? And monitoring is, what kind of monitoring activities is management doing to make sure that they're identifying any issues that do happen and remediating these deficiencies, or evaluating the internal controls and seeing if there's any possible improvement or any recommendations that should be put in place. So for both of these areas, we've assessed those as green and being effective. If you move to the next slide. So the next 2 slides are focusing on the specific processes or control processes that we looked at throughout our audit process. So on this slide here, we have 3 processes. We have the treasury process, which includes the management of cash and investments, the valuation process and monitoring, and all reconciliations that are done monthly or at year end. And we have 5 areas that we would look at. We have understanding the process, walking through a sample transaction, making sure that we can see that that process is in place, and then understanding what could go wrong or what are the potential risks in that area. And then we have different ways that we would do testing of that area. So either we would do test of control, which would be testing the actual transaction, or test the substantive process, which would be testing the year-end balance. For some transactions or types of processes, we test both. The items on this page, because of the nature of the activity in these types of processes, we tested the substantive process. So we looked at the year-end balance and making sure that that process is correct. So the second area on there is estimation, which is, for example, something like allowance or something that management estimates in the financial statement. And we will look at the methodology, what information is used to come up with that calculation, and then the calculation itself, as well as the financial reporting process. So understanding what accounting principles are in place that management is following, the process for closing the books, preparing the information for the report, as well as preparing the general ledger and any journal entries. And for all of these areas here, we've assessed these as effective and had no issues to bring to your attention. On the next slide, we have a couple more areas we'll walk through. So the following three areas are expenditures, payroll, and revenue. And from the expenditure side, we're looking from the purchasing process, so from the PO and the initiation through the receiving and the accounts payable and disbursement. And in this one, we did test of controls, so we made selections of transactions throughout the year and tied that back to supporting documents, as well as did year-end testing on the substantive balance. Payroll includes from the hiring process through the attendance reporting, payroll accounting and payments, as well as separations in that case. And revenue includes the billing process, the cash receipt collection, and revenue recognition, and the cutoff process to make sure that revenue is recognized appropriately in the correct accounting period. And for all three of these areas, we've assessed those as effective and have no issues to bring to your attention. And on the next slide, they wanted to point out a few accounts that were key accounts for the financial statements. These are material accounts that we did specific substantive testing on. For cash and investments, accounts receivable, capital assets, including additions and disposals, debt, pension and OPEB liabilities, and revenue and expenses. For each of these, we performed certain substantive procedures, and had we had any adjustments or material items to bring to your attention, we would, but we had no issues there. If you skip forward 2 slides. So here we have the financial statement results. This is a compressed version. You'll see this in the financial statement draft that you've received as well. We have the statement of net position, and we included both the governmental activities for the general fund and the business type activities, including sewer, water, etc. So focusing on the governmental activities, what you'll see is total assets went up this year from about 19 million in the first column, from 19 million from about 16.9 million or 17 million the prior year. So there's a driver, an increase there in the accounts receivable balance and some increases in capital assets as well that increase that total assets. Going down, looking at deferred outflows, that related to OPEB and pension, that has increased as well this year, as well as increases in the long-term debt and some of the other long-term liabilities. So overall, in the governmental activities, there was an increase here from about 10.6 million last year to 11.5 million this year. So an increase of about $900,000. In the business type column, you'll see that total assets went up slightly, but was relatively consistent with the prior year, and liabilities went up as well. And so that, what ended up resulting was a net loss in that position of $172,000. Slide to the next page, please. So here we have a statement of the changes in the net position for the year. So we have the revenue and the expenses. And starting with the governmental activities, you'll see that total revenue has gone up as well, from about 4.7 million in 2019 to 5.5 in 2020. So there's an increase there. The primary drivers are the payroll taxes and other taxes, and the operating grants that increased during the year. On the expenses side, you'll see a decrease there from 8.3 million last year to $8 million this year. So with the combination of increase in revenue and a decrease in expenses, you're seeing that same change in that position of $907,000 compared to last year's change of $228,000. So there was a growth there. On the business type activities, you'll see that revenues have gone down this year from $19.3 million last year to $18.1 million this year. And then on the expenses, you'll see a similar decrease of $15.9 million of expenses in 2019 to $14.9 million in 2020. So that resulted in that net decrease of $172,000. Can you slide to the next page? So the graph that we're showing here was just to highlight the primary sources of the revenue. So you can see that taxes is the largest source of revenue at 47%, and then transfer taxes and intergovernmental revenues are following after that with intergovernmental revenues at 17% and transfer tax at 15%. And then following that, the licenses and permits and fees is 11%, and the remainder of the categories are smaller. Can you click the next slide, please? All right, so on this slide here, we have the functional expenses for the general fund. We're showing here just to show the largest categories for the expenses, with police department being the largest at 42%, and then administration and capital outlay following after that with 12% for administration and 11% for capital outlay. And the remainder of the categories are smaller, so the three primary sources are that police, administration, and capital outlay. And if you scroll forward 2 slides, please. So the following 3 slides are to highlight some of the required communications that is part of our audit process we're required to bring to your attention, and we'll just go through the items. The first one is we just want to emphasize that the financial statements are the responsibility of management, and our audit was designed in accordance with standards generally accepted in the United States of America to provide for reasonable rather than absolute assurance. So our opinion of the statements is providing reasonable assurance that the statements are free from material misstatement. In addition, management has a responsibility for selecting the accounting policy, and throughout our audit process, we review those policies to make sure that they're reasonable, and we have accepted that these are acceptable accounting policies. And you'll see the description of these policies in the footnotes to the financial statement. Please go to the next slide, please. So as part of our audit process, if we identify any issues in the financial statement balances that require us to make an adjustment, we would bring that to the council's attention, so you're aware of that. There were no significant adjustments identified during the audit process, and no unadjusted or past items that we bring to your attention. In addition, we would report to you any fraud or illegal acts that we identified as part of our audit process, including things that were brought to our attention or things that we identified throughout our testing. And we did not discover any instances of fraud or illegal acts. And in addition, had we identified any material weaknesses in the internal control processes, whether in the design or in the testing, we would bring that to your attention, and there were no material weaknesses noted. Next slide, please. Additional items that we would bring to your attention: had we had any disagreements with management or difficulties in performing the audit, or any major issues discussed with management prior to acceptance, we bring that to your attention, and we have none of these items to report. And what we will do is we will get certain representations from management. So this is part of our typical process, is that management signs representations that they take responsibility for the statement, as an example, with additional representation. In addition, if there have been any consultations with other accountants, whether management was going to other accountants to ask for possibility of doing the audit, we would bring that to your attention, and we're not aware of any. And the last item on here is the independence process. So we are required to be independent from the city, and we go through our own internal process to ensure that we, as the firm, as well as the employees working on the audit, are independent, and we have identified that we're independent of the city. Next slide, please. the last area is just discussing our responsibility related to fraud. As part of our audit, we plan to perform the audit to provide reasonable assurance that there's no material misstatement caused by error or fraud. Although this is not a fraud audit in scope, we always consider the risk of fraud as part of our audit process, whether internal or external, and understanding that fraud could happen at any entity at any time by any person. So we really try to understand what the potential risk for fraud could be, or any motivation, and consider that in our audit process. Next slide, please. So the following slide here just talks about the responsibility by different individuals or different groups, management, the audit committee, or the council, and the external auditor in relation to fraud. And I'm not going to go through all the details. If you go to the next slide, please. So on this slide here, we have the contact information for myself as well as for Bill Seymour, the audit partner. And if any of you on the council have any questions for us, either we can talk through them now, but if you would like to reach out to us directly to ask any questions, we're available at any time, as well as provide consultation throughout the year with any audit or accounting questions that arise for management. Next slide. So this concludes the presentation that we had for you, discussing the results of our audit. But I would like to turn it over to the council to see if anyone has any questions or would like us to flip back through any of the slides.
Okay, well, thank you very much. It's always good to see we have a favorable audit. Remember, this is an audit of our financial practices, not a financial planning opportunity. But are there any questions from council in reference to the audit? Councilman King?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just more of a comment than really a question. Everyone is truly aware of COVID and the negative impact that it's had, not just on our community, but our entire country. And just June and Charles and his entire staff, when you look at the reduction in revenue and taking the proactive stance in lowering cost to really ensure that our city is healthy and going in the right direction is phenomenal. With a reduction of revenue, but controlling costs throughout the entire year to put the city in a very, very good position is, I mean, you guys are doing a phenomenal job with that. So I just want to take a few minutes and call it out, because that's incredible. Because, I mean, typically when you have a decrease in revenue, if you're not proactive and take the right steps, you could end up having a horrible year. And so I looked at those numbers and I had to look at them again. It's, not just, the council and everyone. So really, in the audit, it's fantastic. But I just wanted to call it out, because it's truly incredible considering what we're up against.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments on the audit? Okay, all right, there is no motion on this, so Jane, thank you again for all your work on our audit. You always see us through this, so thank you so much.
Mayor, if I might?
Please.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank June and her staff for all the hard work they've done. It is a major accomplishment to get a clean audit opinion, so thank you again for everything that you've done over the last few months, June.
Thank you, June.
Thank you, June.
Thank you. And just, I will comment, just to give credit to all the department supervisors and directors, based on Councilman King's comment. It's Charles and I help oversee it, but it's certainly through their efforts of, trying to keep costs down and watch expenditures. So I'll have to give credit where credit's due. They do.
Well, I think it's important to our constituents and the people in our community that we're representing understand that. I mean, you guys are working tirelessly to make sure that it balances itself out. And what we're up against is in these numbers. I mean, you guys, kudos, you've done a phenomenal job.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, June. All right, next we'll call Chief Kraft down to look at some of his recommendations.
Good evening.
Evening, Chief.
I have a pretty thick folder, but I promise to do my best to keep it short.
Thank you, sir.
So, also, before I get started, I do have 15 pictures of daytime of all these streets if the council would like to take a look at those. I have some pictures for the slides too.
I drove there often enough.
So tonight, I wanted to do a presentation and a request to reduce the speed limit on 12 of our city streets. And I've been here about 19 months now, and during this 19 months, I've received countless calls for service, for speed enforcement on a number of the streets that we're going to talk about tonight, especially Pine and Arch and several of those streets that run parallel with those streets as well. And if you look at the next slide, I'm sorry. The map doesn't blow up as well, but we're going to talk about the streets between Cedar Avenue, Arch Street, and then from just north of 6th Street, which is south of Stein Highway, and then north of High Street. So there's 15 streets there that are encompassed. And I've listed them on the next slide. Cedar Avenue, North Conwell, and North Cannon are highlighted in red because those streets are plenty wide for this current speed limit of 25. If you look, Cedar Avenue is 24-foot wide. There's really no parking on that road at all. It goes north parallel with the railroad tracks. We don't typically have any issues there. And if you look at North Conwell and North Cannon, both of those streets are in excess of 30 feet wide, and they have parking for shoulders. And so that in and of itself helps with emergency services, whether it's police or fire or EMS, to get back and forth to the complaints. But the streets listed under that have extremely narrow roads. Hazardous, it's a public safety issue. And so since we've been here, we've tried to put enforcement out on a number of these streets. It's very difficult to do enforcement on North Pine Street. It's hard to actually find a place to park. It's hard to find a place to do radar. There's some parking where you can barely get through on North Pine Street, running from High Street south towards High Street, from Stein Highway to High Street, I'm sorry. Fire police, I've talked to a number of the folks there they wouldn't be able to get a fire truck through there in the evening or early morning, and difficult at any other time during the day as well. So, I mean, what we looked at for the streets for North Hom, Arch, North Pine, Pearl Street, East King Street, East Poplar, 3rd Street, East Spruce Street, 4th Street, East Locust Street, Beach, 5th, and 6th Streets. I've listed the widths of those roadways. I've listed whether they're one-way or two-way. As you can see, many of you are very familiar with this area. Several of you council members live or have lived on Pine and Arch in that area. And you're very familiar with the parking, whether it's parking on one side of the road or both sides. I've highlighted those in your slides. It should be on your board packs. And made some comments there as well about some concerns. This is a very dense, very high populated area. Be very difficult to see kids darting out in front of you, or adults or pedestrians. From a public safety perspective and from the crash studies that we've done that we're going to talk about real briefly tonight, I believe that we need to do something now rather than wait until there's a tragedy occur with someone getting struck and killed. This is just a realistic speed limit article, and this article was actually written and published by, if I can read it, I believe it was the Michigan State Police, and then a firm, a company that did these types of speed studies for roads. But the essential byproduct of this article was that reasonable and safe speeds need to be set for courts and for motorists and for law enforcement, so that it's a safe, orderly flow of traffic under normal conditions. And I think normal conditions is the key point here when we look at these roads. These aren't normal conditions. These roads, I think, were set many, many, many decades ago. Things have changed. These were single-family homes back then. Now, many of them are multiple family residents. What used to be maybe 2 cars are now 4, 5, 6, and 7 cars or more in some cases. And so, you know, some of these roads probably need to have parking on one side. Major engineering would have to be done to be able to accomplish that. So we have to look at what we can do now and the immediate future. And a reduction of speed in these areas, I think, would accomplish that. And if you look down through the article, you can see where you examine the different traffic and road conditions, the crashes, the speeds of the vehicles, and that's what we're going to show you in a few slides coming up. And there were some things down here to the bottom right. Why not install stop signs or traffic signals or speed bumps or some other device? And that's because they're made for specific things, right? So a stop sign is, if you install a stop sign, what would typically happen is they're going to try to roll through the stop sign, creating more hazard for accidents. You install a traffic light, typically people are going to try to speed up to beat it, increasing probably crashes through the studies. And speed bumps are just shown to show that they cause significant damage to fire, police, EMS, and other vehicles and motorists. And not to mention like snow removal and things of that nature. So once again, they have their place. Don't think that would apply in our particular situation now. So here's the crash study that I did. I drew what's called a self-defined boundary around that geographical area, from Cedar Avenue up to just south of Stein, over to Arch, and back down nearly to High Street, that rectangle area. That compasses the 15 streets. Within that quadrant, from November 12th of 2018 through November 16th of 2020, there were 31 crashes. Of the crashes, 1 was an injury, 30 was non-reportable. But what really jumps out of this is there were 16 hit-and-run accidents that were reported. That's a significantly high number, the highest number that I found of any of the geographical areas that I put in here for case studies to do comparisons. The largest majority of the crashes occurred on Pine Street. There were a total of 4 DUIs in this geographical area, which was the highest of any other geographical area that I checked in that given time period. And the other thing for this particular study and for all of the comparisons was majority of these occurred during daylight hours. So it's not anything to do with the lighting and things of that nature, though we do have some areas that could be improved with lighting, obviously. And that would encompass like safety reasons and traffic stop signs and kids and all. And so I do have some slides that shows traffic enforcement and warnings at the time of day so that that corresponds with the crashes as well. And for the rest of the streets that the crashes occurred on of the 31, if you can look at the slide there, nearly every single street had a crash. Most of them did. And this is the traffic citations and traffic warrants. We did 67 citations in that geographical area during this same given period of time and issued 18 warnings. Now keep in mind, there's a lot of contact that's made where we don't do paperwork where they might have just gave a verbal warning. And my guess is there's a significant number more of those than there were enforcement or warnings that were done. This is just what was shown as enforcement. So we were actually able to break that down even further to show during that given period of time the days of the week and the time of day, which is important when you look at the citation, the traffic warnings, and the DUI. It's very consistent with the traffic. So we're putting our people out there where we need to have them, when we need to have them. Unfortunately, you just can't be on all of those streets all the time within the city because there's other demands for service as well. But we do know that we can try to narrow it down and focus. In that peak area there, it's about the same as our crashes. And so I think it's pretty consistent. I just showed some pictures up here. This is North Pine Street on the north end up by Stein. And the slide to the right is on the south end. I was talking with Chief Wilson at our liaison meeting yesterday. And the worst area of Pine is really just south of that first 3 or 4 streets south of Stein Highway. And you can see why. And that's on a good day. If you have some large trucks parked right across from another car, like that's kind of staggered a little bit, but that's still really, really bad to get a full-size pickup through there. Can you imagine getting a fire truck through there?
For snow removal, right?
Well, snow removal, EMS, paramedics. And then this is 5th Street and 4th Street. Can you imagine going 25 miles an hour through there? It's just way too fast for safe traveling of vehicles, much less responders. And there you go for Conwell. And I wanted to put Conwell in there. See how wide Conwell is? That's one of the streets we talked about. We're recommending keeping 25, and that's why. They have like 7.5-foot shoulders or so, and they have about 20 foot of roadway. And the standards are about 10 foot for travel lane, and 8 foot is recommended for shoulders. This is really close to that. It's a pretty wide street, pretty safe to travel at that speed limit. And then there's 3rd Street. Once again, there's Popular and Beach Street. They're kind of dark, and the reason we did it at this time of day. We were trying to catch it when more cars were on there. The pictures that you have, paper there, show daylight pictures so you can get a little better picture. They just don't have as many cars out there. And I don't need to go through all of these traffic comparisons. What I want to do is just kind of skim through them without talking about them, because my last slide is going to take the 4 comparisons that I had and give you the upshot, the comparison on one screen, if that's okay. And we can go back if you have any questions. But this is the area of West Poplar and Harrington Street and Island Boulevard in Delaware. It's literally right to the west, I believe, of the area that we just spoke about. And there was only 17 crashes and 3 hit and runs in that same given period of time. So I'm just going to kind of scroll through so you can see we did our due diligence. We have the screens and slides. I can go back to any of them that you would like. But the last slide I'm going to show you really takes the same data and just puts it on one comparator. Here we go. So there you go. Cedar Ave to North Arch, 6th Street, which is south of Stein, just north of High Street. That gives you the data that we compiled. 31 crashes, 1 PI, 30 PD, 16 hit and run, 4 DUI, and then the speed enforcement citations and warrants. And each of the comparators are down below that. So I took a pretty good sampling from around the city. West Poplar to Harrington Street and Nylon Boulevard to Delaware Avenue, that quadrant. And you can take a look at those. Significantly lower numbers. We had more traffic enforcement. Nylon Boulevard got a lot of that, which is kind of understandable, right? Nylon Boulevard to Delaware, and then Sign Highway north of West Poplar Street. Now, if you look, it shows that they have more traffic collisions there. 35 collisions, 1 PI, 34 PDs. They only had 5 hit and run and 2 DUI. They had, I apologize, 11 hit and runs and 1 DUI. We had more enforcement there because of Pennsylvania Avenue, I believe. That's probably kind of like Pine Street, but the difference is Pennsylvania Avenue is a pretty good sized street. It's 25 is not too fast for that street. The problem is we just need to continue to do more enforcement, slow folks down. And there we may be able to deploy some other types of initiatives to slow folks down. So I think that's more of an enforcement initiative problem rather than a speed limit initiative issue. And then comparator number 3, east of Atlanta Road to Hurley Park Drive, Arbutus to North Stein Highway. And what's kind of ironic about this, that's the lowest crashes that we have. We only had 15 PDs, no injuries, 5 hit and runs with 2 DUIs, but 34 tickets and 7 warnings. But we have a speed limit of 15 on Magnolia Drive, and that's because it's very similar to a lot of the streets that we're looking at reducing the speed down to. Parking, very narrow road, and then the speed limit back in 2018 in Crossgate Drive was reduced to 15 miles per hour, and Dan Henderson provided that to me the other day, so I appreciate that. And that shows that reducing the speed does work. And I can tell you, looking at studies across the country right now, there is a big initiative to reduce urban city street speeds down to 20 miles per hour on all streets. New York City's doing it now, a lot out west are doing it. And if you want to see what's going to happen in your region in a year or two, you just kind of look around the country. And so as we become a bigger populated city, I think I looked at 2020 census, and we're up to about 8,200 residents, I believe is what they anticipate being. And I kind of see that growing even more the next couple of years. Seaford's doing a great job. Congratulations on the business park area there. And I made some notes down here about each of those comparators. I don't think I need to really talk about them, but most folks are familiar with those streets. And I think the data speaks for itself. The next area that I would have some concerns that we need to look at, obviously, is the last one here. If you look at on North Street, really over to Williams Pond in that quadrant, 3rd Street, North Street, Collins Park, that whole area, and there was 26 crashes, 3 PIs, so it actually had the most PIs, 23 PDs, 9 hit and runs. So even though it's still significantly less, it's still a significant number with 3 DUIs. We have more enforcement over there. Most of that's on North Street. So the guys are out and about. They're doing enforcement all throughout the quadrants in there. But our biggest concern right now is the areas we're talking about. We are going to need to look at some design or some speed probably reductions over in that area next, probably. And that's my presentation. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Well, I agree with you, Chief. I think the data speaks for itself, so appreciate all the work you've done and your recommendation. Are there any questions or comments for the chief?
I have
Sure, Councilman King.
Chief Kraft, a question for you, or really two questions. What would be the expense that's associated with coming in and changing out the signage? And then how would you communicate this if it's passed tonight? How would you send this message out to our communities to bring awareness that speed limits are dropped?
So I guess we'll address the second question first, because I've talked to Charles and Dan about this, because it's very important. The public needs to know what's happening. So first of all, you get voluntary compliance by doing education. So we would need to put it in the papers. We have 2 digital sign boards right now that we purchased on the coronavirus grant. We would post them around the area. We had 2 speed trailers. We would post up around those different areas and move them around. Put it out on social media, City Hall, as well as the police department. And community policing. We would need to get out there and make people aware. And it's always voluntary compliance, education, the engagement part of it, before you move into enforcement. You want to give people a chance to acclimate. And you know, the 85% rule that they talk about, depends on which theory you read there, is 85% of the public want to abide by the law. It's the 15% typically that you need to watch out for. So we just recently got radar guns that actually track. You can plug them in, pull the data, and we were able to use them a few times. Of the data we got, the average speed was 24.9. And the time that we were out there, most people said that's twice as fast as people should be going, but they weren't speeding. The average, they weren't speeding. When you take 85% of that, it drops it down to nearly 20 miles per hour. We have these extenuating road issues, I think, because of the narrowness. Most people that we've contacted say the same thing, from cops to citizens, and I spoke to Councilman Jose Santos. He kind of agreed with that. So information, we need to put it out, do a news release. As far as changing the signs out, Burley was in a meeting we had the other day. We have existing speed signs down there. That would come under Burley's budget, not mine. So I think that's something we'd have to go back to Burley and ask Burley how much it costs per sign and how many signs are we going to need to post. I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we replace the ones that are on the post. We may need to add a few, though. And I think we discussed it. If it's approved tonight at council, Burley and I are going to go around all of those streets and identify those spots and come up with a good, hard, fast number. I don't think it's going to be a large number, because we already have signs and posts out there. So I hope that answers the question.
It did, yeah, thank you very much.
Any, Councilman McCoy?
Along those same lines, is there any type of estimate, if we do have to change the signs, how long that would take to do that? Once we have, are the signs in stock? Are they on back order? Everything's on back order right now, but do you know anything like that?
No, I don't, because we haven't gotten that far yet to get pricing.
I can respond to that one. We don't keep a stock of 15-mile-an-hour signs, because we don't have a lot of them. As the chief alluded to, we have, I believe, 3 or 4 streets that just have a few 15-mile-an-hour signs on them. A 25-mile-an-hour sign is more popular, so we keep a small stock of that. We only keep a few in stock because a car hits one occasionally, we'll change it, or some of them become, intelligible because they hang out there. So likely, as many as get identified by the Director of Public Works and the Chief of Police will have to be purchased. The only thing I don't think we can say right now without calling our suppliers is, are they in stock at the supplier? So this could literally take, with the reconnaissance that needs to occur, identification of the locations, this probably could take 30, 60, 90 days at the earliest.
Thank you.
And if I may, I would say that I wouldn't want it implemented anyway until spring at the earliest, because I think we need that time for folks to get used to the signs. We need to advertise it. And also, we got to be able to handle the calls for service out there. I will tell you that there's a cause and effect in anything that you do. It's like algebra, right?
Yep.
So it's difficult, hopefully staffing will be where it needs to be. We on paper, we're looking good, but in reality, it's a struggle with all the calls for service right now. And we want to be able to do a good job with it and have people have plenty of time. So I would say at least April. That's for
Okay.
to begin.
All right, any other questions or comments? Councilman Santos?
Yeah, Councilman Santos here. For Cedar Avenue, is the speed limit right now 35 there? Or is it-
25.
It's 25?
As far
Okay.
as I know, it's all 25 are through there right now.
All right. I didn't know if there was going to be any motion to change that one or not. It was on the list. Okay. And now this is a question for council. For Conwell and Cannon Street, do you guys are leaning more towards the 25 miles per hour or the 15 miles per hour? In here it says it could be either or. Personally, I think all the other streets, they should go down to 15 miles per hour, especially Pine Street. But Conwell Street and Cannon Street, I've never really seen a problem as far as the speed goes. But
So that might be an old, I'm not sure what you have in there.
okay,
Yeah, I don't,
But if you look at the slide, this was the updated slide. When we went out and did the measurements and got true measurements, you're trying to do it on the Google Maps. Those numbers kind of play, depends on how you zoom in with them. So we got true measurements. And based on that, I see no need to do a reduction from 25 to 15. I think those three in red should stay 25.
okay, all right.
Yeah, and you know that there's already a sign posted speed limit out there on Poplar, I believe it is, for the church, because of the daycare center there. So that would probably need to be changed down to 15 as well. And that would kill two birds with one stone on that, make it safer for those kids as well.
okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Councilman Henderson, I make a motion to accept the recommendation of Chief of Police Marshall Kraft to reduce the speed limit in the areas of Pine Street, Arch Street, 3rd Street, Pearl Street, East King Street, East Poplar Street, East Spruce Street, 4th Street, East Locust Street, Beach Street, 5th Street, 6th Street, and Cannon Street for public safety purposes as presented.
Okay, we
Let
have,
me correct that. Is Cannon on the list of
Cannon.
25?
Cannon is 25.
Right.
Cedar is
Let me-
25.
You're correct, that should be left out.
Let me strike Cannon Street. I don't
And
want to
leave it
read
as
it all
is.
again, but I would strike Cannon Street.
okay. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman
Sa-
Coyle, second.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman King,
Aye.
Thanks. Thank you. It's unanimous. Chief, thank you for your,
Thank you, Chief.
please,
Thank you,
please,
Chief.
appreciate it. Next, we'll have City Clerk Tracy Torbert come up for the proposed voter registration dates.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's that time of the year again to start preparing for the 2021 municipal election. Per our charter, it will be held April 17th, 2021, during the hours of 7 until 3. The candidate deadline to file for candidacy is February 26th, and the deadline to register to vote is March 26th by 5:00 p.m. As you are aware, we are in the process of doing a charter change, but this will be the last election using our book of registered voters if our charter change is successful. This year, there are 2 seats up for election, Councilman King and Councilman Holland seats. So in order, it's been a discussion in the past of how we can do a better outreach of getting the word out to our voters that we do a separate voter registration process. So staff is proposing to provide 2 different extended office hours to allow people the opportunity to come in to register to vote. And the 2 dates that we're proposing are Saturday, March 13th from 10 until 1, and Wednesday, March 24th from 5 until 7. Both of these dates are prior to the deadline to register to vote and after the deadline to file for candidacy, and they will only be held if we are to have an election. But just to point out that as in years past, we will work with residents and eligible voters to do other avenues if they can't make it to the office during normal business hours or these extended hours by going, we have it on our website. We can always email it to them, anything that they really, we will assist them. We are not proposing this year to take anything out of the office as far as going to the Manor House or any of those due to COVID and just, health concerns of our staff and the residents at those long-term facilities. And if anyone has any questions, I can answer them.
Okay, are there any questions on the proposed voter registration dates?
I have just one.
Councilman
So clear.
King.
Yeah, Councilman King. Tracy, so you talked a little bit about the Manor House and off-site voter registration drives. Has there been any conversation of having an event like that elsewhere throughout the community, maybe a public setting like the library, as an example, to have a voter registration and communication and education event?
We have had discussions with them. We did last year with, internally. The only thing with that is right now, like for instance, and everything's changing daily with COVID, but right now the library is not open. So it'd be hard if we were to schedule that and then advertise it and then have to draw it back. So here at City Hall, we have the drive-through where we could access people. So even if we aren't open to the public at City Hall, as far as people coming in, we can still help them through the drive-through. So as far as getting the information out and it still being able to be done, we feel that just having it at City Hall is our best option.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions in reference to
Just
voter
wanted to say,
registration?
the library has been open. A lot of libraries have been closed in the area, but,
Oh, I got an email today that I thought they were going to go back to curbside.
oh, maybe now, but I thought you mentioned before, like, it's,
No, just recently. I think in like the governor's recommendation that he's brought up starting next week, I think they're going back to curbside.
okay.
And like I said, that can change. They could be open when, February or March, but that's an unknown, that changes daily, so.
That's it.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I make a motion to approve the proposed dates for extended hours for the voter registration prior to the 2021 municipal election as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next we have the agreement of sale on High Street.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have, as new business number 5, an agreement of sale for the property located at 405, 407 High Street. This is on the corner of High and Spring Street. Tracy, thank you very much. There's a picture I took the other day. There's a block warehouse on the property. The city uses this property currently for it was formerly our first Saturday events. I apologize. There was a recent death of the property owner, and this property was offered for sale to the city. The city did have it appraised, and it appraised at $185,000. A copy of the appraisal is included in your board pack. Additionally, as part of our due diligence on this property, the city did have a Phase 1 environmental site assessment completed by Brightfields. Did not include that because it's several thousand pages in length, but it did in its executive summary find no substantive issues with this property. So in essence, it's a clean property. The city does have money, $585,000 in our land sale reserve account to purchase this property for the $185,000 should the city of Seaford want to. An agreement of sale is attached, and just to point out a couple things on that, number 2 in the agreement is the purchase price of $185,000. Time and place of settlement, the property owner, because it is in a trust and an estate, would like to close by the end of the year if that's a possibility. So we are working towards that. It's a pretty simple agreement of sale, and the request of council tonight, should they want to proceed with this, is to give the authority to the mayor to execute this agreement of sale. You'll notice it has been executed by the irrevocable trust. There is a survey in there. Basically, it's an older site. The property lines are right adjacent to the building. So what you see there between Spring Street, High Street, and the rear property line, that's basically the property. Trying to think of anything other where we are with this, but should council agree to this evening, the mayor executes the agreement of sale. We would get this to the city solicitor tomorrow, try to prepare the closing documents, and because it would be a cash sale, we could move this forward pretty expediently. I'll try to answer any questions that council might have.
All right, are there any questions in regards to the purchase of the property on High and Spring Street?
Just one.
Councilman King?
So Charles, can you provide me a little bit of clarity? So the back garage area, is that included in the purchase of this property?
It is, yes, sir.
Okay.
It might be easier if you look at the survey,
Yeah, I was looking
kind of
at
the
it.
last
Yeah,
page.
it was kind of-
There's a lot going on there,
Yeah, it was
you
a
know,
little-
yeah. But yeah, that block building is included in this property, and then basically that front grass area. Behind the block building, there are some parking spaces, a paved area. So that's all included in the property the city is considering.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Was there any attempt to negotiate any offers that you offered prior to getting to reaching the agreed price of $185,000?
Yes, sir, Councilman. The city did offer initially a value below the appraised value. The owner responded to us that they would like they requested the appraised value.
Okay, are there any other questions? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Councilman Henderson. I make a motion to approve the agreement of sale for the property located at the corner of High and Spring Streets, 405 and 407 High Street, Sussex County tax map, parcel number 431-5.00-2.9 -294.00, and permit the mayor to execute all necessary closing documents related to the property transfer as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman King, I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next we have the ORPT grant for the kayak and canoe launch. Tricia, you're going to present. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You have before you and in your board pack information from the Delaware, from DENREC for the ORPT grant. The first one in New Business 6 is with regard to the Oyster House Park Phase 1. Just to kind of bring you back to where we are with that, this is a depiction of what Phase 1 looks like with the over-the-water boardwalk, floating dock, pier, gangway. And with the information that you have, the ORPT, we have been awarded $80,000 to go towards the floating dock, the canoe kayak launch, and the gangway. The money is specifically earmarked for that. And it is a 50-50 match. We do have that money budgeted. We have used ORPT prior to this in the first phase in the acquisition and the planning. But with all ORPT grants, anytime you acquire these funds, the land needs to be retained as outdoor recreation and conserved in that manner. So we just have that one before you.
Are there any questions to the ORPT grant for the boardwalk canoe launch and all that you see? If not, I'll accept a motion.
Councilman McCoy, I'll make the motion to permit the city manager to execute the Outdoor Recreation Parks and Trails ORPT grant agreement in the amount of $80,000 for the installation of the floating docks, canoe kayak launch, and gangway in Oyster House Park as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. Next, we have the ORPT grant for the sports complex.
Correct. Same scenario. This is the ORPT grant for the sports complex. This will be for fencing and a sidewalk pathway around the sports complex. The fencing is approximately 1,300 feet, and it will be along the North Pine Street extended area. We've had some concerns with some of the fields being close, with the kids closer to the roads, also people parking there, which are creating some additional hazards. So we have that fencing, as well as the sidewalk. You can see the Jay's Nest in that picture there, and it would actually allow folks from that use that gravel parking to be able to have a sidewalked path, particularly for those that have strollers, handicap accessibility, that kind of thing, making it a little bit easier to get on the walking path or get to one of the other fields, whether it's the football field or the soccer field. again, same caveat with any of the funds that it needs to be retained as outdoor recreation.
All right, are there any questions in reference to the ORPT grant for the sports complex?
I just have one.
Councilman King?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman King, Trish, so is there an execution date? I mean, with this grant, do you have to utilize the funds by a certain time, or you lose those?
Correct.
If it is,
All
what does
the-
that look like?
All of the funding needs to be expended by June 30th, 2022. As soon as we get it executed, it's a reimbursable type grant anyway, so we would do the work and then we would submit the paperwork for a drawdown of the funding.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions from council? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make that motion to approve City Manager, Chest Street Outdoor Recreation, Parks and Trails, ORPT grant agreement in the amount of $20,000 for the installation of fencing and walks at the Seaford Sports Complex as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Santos, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tricia,
Thanks,
very much.
Trish.
If I might, I'd just like to thank publicly Trish and her staff, specifically Katie Hickey, for submitting these two grants. These, specifically this right here, the fence and the sidewalk, were budgeted funds. So this helps us leverage our local funds, so now we only have to spend half our dollars for this. So they did a great job on that, and I want to publicly commend them for their
Yes,
work.
thank you guys so much. Sometimes you go through these things, you end up taking them for granted that they just roll so much, so we do
a lot of
appreciate
work.
you pointing that out. It's a lot of work. All right, next we have the resolutions and amendments to the employee pension plan.
All right, thank you. So we're going to present for approval pension resolutions and amendments to the general employee pension plan that would be effective January 1, 2021. And these include changing the final averaging period from 3 to 5 years to set your pension, and then capping service at 30 years. Right now, there is no cap. And then increase the employee contribution from the current 5% to 7%. So the resolution that you have in there was prepared by Buck Consultants, who is our actuarial consultant. And they came to council a few months ago, I believe it was in October. And this is the culmination of that. So if council adopts this resolution, accepts this approves this resolution, then these three specific changes to the general employee pension plan would be implemented for all new hires that would start after January 1, 2021. So certainly we can try to answer any questions that council might have.
Again, I think it's important to repeat that this will not impact any of our current employees. This would be all hired January 2nd, 2021 forward. So are there any questions in regards to these changes? If not, I'll accept a motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I will make the motion to adopt the pension resolution and amendments to the general employee pension plan amendments effective January 1st of 2021 to include A, changing the final average period from 3 to 5 years, B, cap service at 30 years, and C, increase employee contributions from 5% to 7% as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman Santos, I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Thank you very much. That's unanimous, and that change will impact the city's budget in the future to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is a big deal when you have a budget like ours. So thank you very much for doing that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, old business, please.
Okay, so at the last meeting, we did have the first reading for ordinance number 2020-04, and that would amend Chapter 4 of the Municipal Code of Seaford, Delaware relating to buildings, and it would affect Chapter 4, Article 1 of the Municipal Code to amend Section 1612.4 and Section R 322.2.1. The building official, Mike Bailey, was here, presented this. This is a requirement through a review of the CRS system where we get a flood insurance, the community rating system. We get a flood insurance discount. This just clarifies that electrical systems, equipment components, HVAC, air conditioning, plumbing, et cetera, systems need to be raised 18 inches above the base flood elevation. And so it's in two different codes. That's why the two code section, the residential code as well as the building code. I'll attempt to answer any questions council might have. I'll just add by saying this would be the second reading. If council adopts this, we would effect an advertisement of these changes, and they would become effective 30 days after the advertisement.
Okay, any questions to the changes to Chapter 4 of the Municipal Code? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve ordinance number 2020-04 to amend Chapter 4 of the Municipal Code of Seaford, Delaware, related in buildings in the manner following, to wit, Chapter 4, Article 1 of the Municipal Code of Seaford, Delaware, to amend Section 1612.4 and Section R322.2.1 as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Councilman McCoy, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Ashley, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Santos,
Aye.
Councilman Henderson,
Aye.
Councilman Holland,
Aye.
Councilman McCoy,
Aye.
Councilman King.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, reminders and meetings.
Okay, city offices will be closed on December 24th and 25th in observance of the Christmas holiday. Leaf machines out, it'll be out till the end of the year, so if it does rain, we just encourage people, residents, to clean the catch basins or call us to let us know there's a problem. As the city clerk alluded to, our next municipal election will be held April 17th, 2021. So there are 2 council members up that will be elected for a 3-year term. We have listed in the agenda all the requirements and filing dates. I'll just report, in addition to that information, Jeff Benson has already filed for city council. So,
Okay. Is that it?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. All right, we'll go to committee reports. We'll start with administration and IT with Councilman Santos.
Thank you, Mayor. So there have been inspections for the police department renovations project. That's going along nice. I think there's still some stuff that they had to look at regarding the roof. But they did meet with the developer regarding the potential for governor's grants, the R3 portion of it. For the IT report, they did complete installation at the police department for fire alarm tie-ins and workings and in the basement locker rooms. They're working with advanced securities to configure and add cameras along with new camera projects for the year. As far as the audit goes, that was presented tonight. That went well. And as far as the Teamsters, we haven't scheduled a meeting yet. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we'll go to police and fire. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start out with a report by Chief John Wilson of the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department. To date, there have been, as of yesterday, 704 fire calls for an average of 2.06 calls per day. There were 64 calls in November and 9 calls in December so far. In the EMS calls, there were 3,077 to date as of 12/7 for an average of 9.02 calls per day. There were 282 calls in November with 55 calls in December so far. So if the math is right, it's 3,781 calls for service to date through the department for an average of 11.08 calls per day. There were 2 significant calls that were both out of the city. One on Eden Branch Road, which was a working residential fire, which is under investigation by the fire marshal's office. And then another out-of-city event, which was on Coverdale Road for a motor vehicle crash with a fire. However, the occupant self-extricated before arrival, and that case is under investigation by the Delaware State Police. All apparatus is currently in service. In the EMS department, the new B87 pre-construction meeting was completed, and the new unit is due by April 2021. There's a training date coming up on December 16th at 1900 hours. The fire department's been busy doing community service. They're doing drive-by birthday celebrations, and they also were present for the last home game. Tower 87 was there with its flag for the last home game for Seaford High School. And there is a department election happening tomorrow evening at 1900 hours at the station for officers and board members. And there will be a Santa run, and that'll be done on Friday, December 18th. So Santa will be driving through the streets and possibly some developments outside of the city. So stay tuned to the fire department's Facebook page for more information on that. But that's going to be happening with great fanfare. Chief Wilson wishes to wish a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and Happy Holidays to the Mayor, City Council, City Manager, and the entire city staff. Please be fire safe during the holidays. In the Seaford Police Department, we continue to celebrate the newly acquired accreditation through the Delaware Police Accreditation Commission. You can see the chart showing crimes to date, crimes for the previous 2 years, 2019 and 2018. The totals are all there. In criminal, there were 135 tickets written, and you can see the distribution of the categories there with an 88% clearance rate. You can see the crime view for days of incidents and the times of days that most of these incidents occurred. Additional crime, there was 15 complaints, including assault, aggravated assault, fraud, burglary, and rape, with 5 felony and 10 misdemeanors with 3 adults arrested. These crimes exclude shoplifting. You can see the distribution and time of day in the crime view in the report. Under drug complaints, there were 2 overdoses during this period. I do not have a report on the disposition of those overdoses. Under traffic, there were 163 traffic contacts with 64 citations. So you can see that the department is making a lot of contact with area residents or area motorists. However, not every contact results in a ticket. It's community policing, being out there and being just having contact with the motorists. There were 4 DUIs in this period, 17 crashes, 2 injury and 15 non-injury accidents with 1 hit-and-run accident. None of the accidents were drug or alcohol related. There is a list of significant events. The police on 11/28, I'll just go through a couple of them. On 11/28, Seaford Police Department was dispatched to Tidal Health Nanticoke to assist Delaware State Police due to a homicide victim being transported from Middle Ford Road out of city limits to the hospital. Seaford Police Department provided crowd control and investigated a related criminal mischief that occurred to hospital property during the incident. So This just demonstrates the cooperation that the city is having with the state police as they have to bring, we just have to provide cover for them when they bring subjects in or when victims are transported to the hospital. It often brings an element of interested parties to the scene, and it often requires crowd control. On 12/5, the department was dispatched once again to Tidal Health Nanticoke for a gunshot victim at or about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Very little information has been put forth from witnesses, so the case is pending active. And under training, you can see that there were 88 total hours of training, which is in keeping with accreditation. You'll see much more training and a diverse amount of training in order to keep this accreditation. And under events, the police department continues to support volunteerism by assisting the Nanticoke Senior Center with meal deliveries to the homebound community members on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That's an ongoing commitment. And thank the department, the officers and the staff at the department for their commitment to that effort. And officers were interviewed on Justice, a video series with the Seaford High School principal, the chief, Officer Burgos, and Officer Dice. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. All right, next we'll have Code, Parks and Rec, Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start off with code. Rental license renewal notices have been mailed out, and rental inspections are being scheduled. Also, plumbing license and trash hauler license renewals are being processed, and the first building is under construction at East Park Business Center, and all the work is routine. And we change over to Parks and Recs. Yellow ribbons, yellow bows were pasted at Gateway Park in honor of those active in the military over the holidays. And they have installed new railing fence along River Park, which I have pictures.
Well done.
Yep.
It looks good.
Definitely enhanced it. Yes. And also Birch Tree clearing in Williams Park Pond is in the process. And also received a grant funding for Archer House, which we already heard, and sports complex in the amount of, combined amount of $100,000. And before me, I have a sample of the quality, what they're using for the decking. For you to see if you want.
Wow.
Check that out.
Wow, show and tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And that concludes my report.
What about you got another picture?
And also there's a pic. One of them, is that you, Mayor?
Who are those masked men?
There's a pit.
Who are they?
Who is that masked man?
Well, it's probably you one that can't pick the shovel up out of dirt.
That could be, that is Chesapeake Conservancy Board Chair, Mr. Randy Larimore,
Okay,
who's,
Feels like you're wild, Orlando.
I wish.
Randy's dad's
Pass that down,
picture is on the wall in here. He is a past mayor from the 50s. And Randy's made a great career for himself, but had a passion to give back to Seaford and got involved with the Chesapeake Conservancy and has really helped lead the charge on this Oyster House project. He is just excited to give back. His dad was mayor when the city of Seaford built their wastewater treatment plant. Oh, wow. So his connection to the river and the improvements his dad was a part of, he feels connected to that. And when someone's on a nonprofit board, they get involved in great projects, but when it's your own hometown, you just get a different sense from Randy that this is super important to him. He's going to see it through, so we're blessed to have him be a part of it. So thank you for your report. That was well done, Councilman Holland. Next, we have electric. Councilman McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hit a few highlights. From the crew this past week, they started digging in the secondary and street light conduit for Muirfield 1, Phase 2B. He turned on all of the Christmas decorations and had their training on the new chipper. As for the director, he had a council liaison meeting, a staff meeting, and a director's meeting. Met the surveyor at Wawa to mark electric conduit and pad locations. Also met with the contractor on site at Wawa for directional boring. Over the next few weeks, they're going to continue to do work at Muirfield 2 as they build more units in Phase 1. Start working in Bel Air multifamily for construction and pull the wire and set transformer at the AUI building. If I could segue a little bit off topic, Councilman Henderson reminded me about the Seaford Volunteer Fire Department and them bringing out the fire truck on Friday night. It was a big hit. I wish I could say it was my idea. Trevor Holmes, former player of ours, he texted me Thursday night and he said, hey, I got this idea. We're going to bring the fire truck out. I said, well, let me text Coach to make sure it's okay. He said it was okay, and then he brought it out, him and Kevin, and it was a good scene. And Blue Jays got a W on the final game of the season. So,
All right.
It was a good game, and that's my report.
All right, thank you so much. And finally, we have Public Works, Wastewater Treatment, Councilman King.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report's been submitted in its entirety. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights. I want to start with the Public Works Department. Hydrant flushing is ongoing. They completed 4 new water service taps on Hurley Park Drive. The leaf machine is out as alluded, but they're having difficulty dumping it. So they've moved locations. They're actually dumping it at the compost site now because of water. The force main installation for the Unified Sewer District is complete and is in use. Dalby Lift Station should be in use this week and receiving wastewater from the county. There's still, it's an endless job of picking up limbs and leaves, prepare the salt brine for the season. They are still 2 people short, which is really starting to impact production and ability to serve the community. So with that being said, people, please just be patient. They will get to you. I'm going to jump over to the wastewater treatment facility. The plant performance remains good. They do have compost to sell by appointment. And then some of the activities happening over the next 2 weeks, they're going to pull and rebuild the Manor House lift station pump. They're going to pull and rebuild Seaford Village lift station pump, and just limbs, and leaves, and leaves. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Okay, so since this is our last meeting of the year, I do want to close with thanking our city engineer for sitting through an entire meeting, which is in and of its. We appreciate you and all that you do. I mean, we're blessed to have you guys, but Seaford has certainly been blessed by God this year, and I did want to recognize that we're fortunate to have Penny Short in our hospital here, who keeps us informed and has kept us safe through this whole COVID, and I can't thank her enough for keeping me informed and what's going on there. Also, our Seaford School District, keeping our schools open and our kids educated when a lot of school districts in our state chose not to open. Seaford opened, and I thank our teachers and our Seaford School Board for that. I also want to personally thank Mike Vincent and Sussex County Council for what they did today. That's a bigger deal than we've made it tonight. It's a huge thing. I think it's something we're going to look back on in 10 or 15 years as Charles pushes me up in my wheelchair. And our children have jobs here in Seaford. I think it's going to be an incredible thing. And I think partnering with the county and the state is a huge deal. And I think I want to thank all of you guys for your leadership on seeing economic development as important. I want to thank Charles and all of our directors and all of our employees, because I'm pretty confident if you ask any of our employees what our focus is, they truly know it's economic development. Along with our state representatives, Danny Short and Senator Richardson and Pettyjohn, all of those have been so supportive of what we're trying to do to help grow jobs here in Seaford. We truly, truly are blessed even in these crazy, uncertain times. So with that, I want to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas, and I thank all of you for what you do, the sacrifice you do to serve as an elected person and in your leadership roles here at the city. I love you guys. I appreciate all you do. So with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion?
Councilman King? Yep.
Do you have a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.